That August afternoon in 1906, Mr. Du Bois rose to be heard by an audience and the world. Times were bad those days for black and yellow people in America. Random murder and race riots were in Atlanta, and President Theodore Roosevelt falsely blamed a vicious brawl in Brownsville, Texas, on a highly decorated unit of black army men. And things were getting even worse. Booker T. Washington and his celebrated Tuskegee Institute stressed skills and self-help for those who needed them. But now, in these times, the urge to fight back, to speak out for human rights, weighed heavily upon this intensely shy, incredibly bright man, Mr. W.E.B. Du Bois. It was these conditions that brought him to this historic moment in American history. That Sunday, August 19th, 1906, at Storer College in Harpers Ferry, marked W.E.B. Du Bois' debut as a speaker for the souls of black folk, which is the name of his great work. You could say that the NAACP, which was Du Bois' brainchild, and the legendary body that made many of our laws fair to all, was born that afternoon on a hilltop in Harpers Ferry. This was the very same site that President Thomas Jefferson once gazed and wrote about with wholehearted awe. The 29 people of this group that first met 1 year before Niagara Falls had been blackballed there by American hotels. And through a fierce campaign by the unsympathetic black leader Booker T. Washington, they were also ignored by the editors of all of the United States' major newspapers, except for two. Perhaps the rivalry between Du Bois and Booker T. Washington was personal as well as philosophical. That is, a difference of opinion between a West Virginia-born country boy who stressed self-reliance and training, and a New England-born, Harvard-educated, European-educated sophisticate who preferred the pen of polemics over the sickle and spade. But this second meeting at Harpers Ferry in August of 1906, of what was now called the Niagara Movement, had magic and inspiration on its side, and it would not fail. It was John Brown's birthday, and this was the hallowed place where the voice for the enslaved rang true and prophetically in 1859. And this time, this meeting, the press was there in strength, led by the Radcliffe graduate and long-term Du Bois admirer, Mary Ovington, who was covering the event for the New York Evening Post. Her presence, ironically, also shot down an edict at the first meeting that men and women meet separately. The trains unloaded guests at the bottom of the hill at Harpers Ferry after a short ramble from the District of Columbia, and carriages then took them up the long, steep hill to Storer College and its dormitories. There was also Lafayette Hershaw, who left the superintendency of Atlanta's segregated schools in the 1890s to take up a clerical position in the Department of Interior in Washington, D.C. He was well aware that his alliance that day with Du Bois could lose him his job, a measure of Booker T. Washington's power to punish any rival. Murray called the 60 to 70 people there to order. Henry T. McDonald, Store's president, welcomed the body. He had given these innovators a place on American soil to have their momentous meeting. Then J.R. Clifford, who represented West Virginia in this new movement, spoke to the body. Symbolism was in the air the moist, dewy, sometimes hot August air of Harpers Ferry. Author David Levering Lewis recreated that moment in Harpers Ferry in August of 1906 in his biography of W.E.B. Du Bois. Early Friday, after the women's meeting, the men and women of the Niagara movement marched barefoot on dewy grass with candles cupped against the morning breeze in silent procession from their hilltop residence halls to pay homage to Brown's memory in the old arsenal. They made the silent march in obedience to Du Bois' flair for drama. That afternoon they heard his praise of Brown's rage and rectitude, after which they sang again the battle hymn of the Republic. But never with such enthusiasm as this afternoon, Ovington wrote in the Evening Post. But it was left to Reverdy Ransom to electrify the significance of place and moment when they reassembled on the hilltop in Anthony Hall. God sent John Brown to Harpers Ferry, the tall, long-maned preacher told them, to become a traitor to the government in order that he might be true to the slave. Ransom's address was as lengthy as it was cathartic, going straight to the heart of the Niagara movement, his voice booming from the auditorium's rafters. Today, two classes of Negroes confronted by a united opposition are standing at the parting of the ways. The one counsels patient submission to our present humiliation and degradations. It deprecates political action and preaches the doctrine of industrial development and the acquisition of property. The other class believes that it should not submit to being humiliated, degraded, and remanded to an inferior place. It believes in money and property, but it does not believe in the bartering its manhood for the sake of gain. Nothing was to match the applause given to Ransom's oratory until Hershaw read Du Bois' cadenced and compelling address to the country on the last night of the conference. The men and women at Harpers Ferry were exalted by Du Bois' 5-point resolution demanding quality education, enforcement of the 14th Amendment provision for reduction in the congressional representation of states where black people had been eliminated from the ballot, as well as justice and jobs for black people and laboring people. Here at last I approached, Du Bois would write in his autobiography, the fundamental matter of the exploitation of the worker, regardless of race and color. He wrote, "We will not be satisfied to take one jot or tittle less than our manhood rights." He went on, "We claim for ourselves every single right that belongs to a freeborn American, political, civil, and social, and until we get these rights, we will never cease to protest and to assail the ears of America. The battle we wage is not for ourselves alone, but for all true Americans. It is a fight for ideals, lest this, our common fatherland, false to its founding, become in truth the land of the thief and the home of the slave, a byword and hissing among the nations for its sounding pretensions and pitiful accomplishments." The address to the country, the birth point of the NAACP, ended with the irrefutably reasonable demand: cannot the nation that has absorbed 10 million foreigners into its political life without catastrophe absorb 10 million Negro Americans into that same political life at less cost than their unjust and illegal exclusion will involve? The applause at that point was resounding and continued on for years in the hearts of many.